Assalamualaikum and good morning. Thank you everyone for making the time to attend this session. I would start with an apology and a gratitude for the organizers. One, for inviting me to give this talk on ESG awareness, and number two, for putting up with all my changes. So I'd like to come clean just by saying that I made a mess a little bit about my arrangements with my calendar, and there was a bit of an overlap. Not a bit of an overlap, there's actually an overlap with the commitments that I have. And instead of initially agreeing to appear physically at your venue, I've requested to conduct it online because I do have another session after this talk. And then from that it became worse because the session got changed, the preset session got changed, and there was an overlap. And I'm trying to make the best of it, and I do want to still give these talks to UTM. So what I've done is I wake up early in the morning and created this recording for you. And I do hope that there's no hiccups uh, in its presentation. It's 5 o'clock here. And yeah, without further ado, I'll go into the presentation and let's make the best of it. All right, so the topic of the day is ESG awareness. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm not sure how the event will go, but I think the organizers or the MC might have introduced me. I'll introduce myself again anyway. My name is Rajesh Azrin Shah, Rajesh Ehsan Shah. I was trained as an engineer, chemical engineer. I graduated from the University of Malaya long time ago in 2004. But I've always been interested in the environment, and I think I started, uh, you know, working in the field or overlap of the engineering and the environment as early as when I was in the first year, working with my mentor at that time, right? And over the years, when we graduated in 2005, we were already talking about sustainability. At that time, it was not something that was really spoken about a lot. And I think of late, sustainability is something that everyone is concerned about, and it's become rather important, not just in the scientific and academic community, but also in the business community. So I think hence the interest, even in the Department of Mathematical Sciences. I hope it's an interest to know more about ESG, which is very much related to sustainability. So I'll explain that a little bit. So the QR code, I don't know if you can scan it on your screen, but the QR code would actually take you to my LinkedIn profile. I do hope you connect with me. I do share a lot of things there, a lot of articles, a lot of infographics, which are related to sustainability, greenhouse gas, climate change. Of late, I'm also sharing information about planetary health as well. Now, I've already covered about who I am. Along the way, I'll tell you stories about you know, events that I've encountered in context, of course, to the topic of today. And basically, why we're here today is to build a little bit of awareness, to be a little bit, to be conversant, to be able to appreciate and hopefully explain what ESG is. So my target is always when someone comes to you and asks, what is actually ESG? You'll be able to hold a conversation over a cup of teh tarik. That's what I always say. So, you want to be able to say, okay, beyond a 3-second conversation, ESG is environmental, social, and governance, but what is it about really? So that's what we're here today, to build a common understanding on what ESG is, and I'll try to clarify related key concepts and frameworks that are related to ESG. So I hope you got the QR code done. Let's go into the slides. So the concept of ESG is not something new. If you want to call it a rebrand of existing concept or an upgrade of existing concepts, I'd start in the 1980s. In fact, even before that, but let's say just 1980s. the global community, the businesses particularly, uh, develop a little bit of interest, actual interest on environment, health, and safety. Now, this actually spawned up from the interest towards the employee safety. Now, people were becoming a little bit more conscious over the safety of the employees at the plant, at the factories, and that gave birth to many of the regulatory frameworks that are involving or that are related to worker safety. Now, in the 90s, this translated into something even more. Now, earlier on, it was not just worker safety. From the worker safety, it actually included the environment, right? So that's where the regulations became more focused on the how do you say, the protection of the environment. So you see governments and regulations looking into regulating discharge standards to the air, to the atmosphere, and also to the rivers, to the water bodies. So in Malaysia, you have your EQA, Environmental Quality Act, or Akta Quality Alam Sekeliling, which looks into enforcing the characteristics of the water, or the standard, the discharge standards of industrial effluents into the river, into the lakes, and wherever it's being discharged. Now, in the 90s, we realized that it's not enough to just look into discharge standards. Now, this is where the concept of sustainability came in. And I'm going to explain sustainability in the upcoming slide, I think. And it was no longer enough just to regulate discharge standards. You need to be looking into sustainability. Now, this is a more holistic approach where you're looking into impacts. You're looking into a long-term impact towards the activities, be it industrial activities or be it household activities. Now, I'm going to explain that a little bit further as well. Now, over the millennium, sustainability evolved and gained a lot of interest amongst the business communities and the global community in general. Now, the CSR, the corporate social responsibility, became something that everyone wanted to do. You know, billionaires were becoming heroes, and you see public figures like Bill Gates from Microsoft and at that time Steve Jobs from Apple. They came into the limelight and became stewards of incorporating the concept of sustainability into their business operations, and that became a thing. So before COVID or over COVID, things sort of came together, and that was the, I think, the birth of the concept and the idea of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, which coincidentally or not coincidentally is the three pillars of sustainability, right? So the E is the environmental portion, and the S is the social portion, and the G is actually the governance portion. Now, the concept of sustainability is what gave birth to this ESG. I'm going to tell you what ESG is after I take a little bit of time explaining what sustainability is. Now, I always tell this story. You know, once upon a time, there was a family, and this family lived very peacefully up in the mountains. You know, you imagine that they live this like a resort lifestyle even, right? Where you have fresh air, good views, stunning views. And one day, the head of the family, let's imagine that's the father. Nowadays you have to be inclusive, but let's just imagine it's the father, right? And the father says, look, I think we need to be looking into, you know, new environments. So this family just decided to just move, and they moved their house beside the lake, right? So they moved from the mountains, they moved to the lake. Now, beside the lake, uh, they prospered. You know, the father could go fishing, and the rest of the family could, go about agriculture activities, planting vegetables, herbs, and whatnot around the house, and they live rather happily. Now, after a while, their neighbor saying, "Look, you know, our neighbor. moved up by that lake, and it looks like they're doing quite well, and maybe we should consider. So the neighbor then moved, you know, to join this first family. And after a while, many people heard of this prosperous situation, and more people moved there, right? So over 5 years, you get 50 families moving beside the lake. And over 10 years, you got 500 people moving beside the lake, 500 families moving beside the lake, right? And perhaps the first two family, the first family, the father became a mayor of that new township that became by the lake. And one day they had a town hall, a discussion to say, oh, something has changed. We used to go fishing. We used to get high value fish, some very good game fish, and now every time we fish, what comes up is catfish. Ikan keli itu yang naik. So that became a little bit of a problem. So yeah, in order to explain the concept of sustainability, what do you think happened? Right? I'll give it a bit of a pause. I know you can't respond to me, but right. So what actually happened? So, when the first family moved, let's say a family is about five people. So you have five people. So when you have your activities there, you plant, you go about your business, you eat. What happens after you eat? Right? Again, I give you a bit of a pause. After you eat, of course, you go to the toilet, you poo, and you poo. So there was five people pooping into the lake. And that was not a problem. And when two families moved, there was 10 people pooping into the lake. Over 5 years, you had 50 families, so 250 people pooping into the lake. Then when you had 500 families pooping into the lake, you're talking about 2,500 people pooping into the lake. Now, I don't know if you're allowed to say pooping. I hope you're allowed to say pooping, uh, fellow lecturers. Apologies. Just to highlight a point here. Okay. So when 2,500 pooping into the lake comes back and tell you, look, you are pooping at a rate faster than I can regenerate. So the concept is when you poop into the lake, your poo, your shit, actually decomposes, and that actually becomes nutrient to be absorbed by the microbes and the plants in the lake. But when you cross a certain level, the capacity of which the current population of plants and microbes in the lake cannot take it anymore. That's a point where sustainability has been breached. So the concept of sustainability is working below this level that the world and the ecosystem can regenerate itself, right? That's the concept. Hence, that is why people normally relate the concept of sustainability as to be able to continue life, to be able to continue what you go about in your daily activities in an infinitesimal way, to go on forever, hence the word sustained, right? So that's the idea. So just to explain and conclude my once upon a time story, right? When you cross that level, that's where it's no longer becomes sustainable. So now, with that concept, you know that over the years, it has developed into something more structured, something more scientific. Now, the idea of the three pillars of sustainability is that it has to be balanced, right? You have to be looking into a balance of the three pillars of sustainability. Now, some people call it people, planet, and profits, but in another form, you can call it environmental, social, and governance, or some people call the governance part economy. One and the same. We're not talking about language here. I think we should be able to understand. Now, the idea is, some of you may have seen the Venn diagram with the environment, social, and economy having an overlap. So the idea of sustainability is you need to balance these three, and you cannot drop one, or you cannot just focus on two without focusing on all three, because when you focus on two, one will suffer, right? I don't know if I've confused you, but let's just say if a company focus on just the company and the people, right? Just the people meaning its workers. So you just focus on the company and the workers making profits, the environment will surely suffer, right? okay, then we go about let's focus on other things. So the company says, let's just focus on the company and the environment. That's where the people will suffer. And okay, let's just focus on the environment and the people. The company will suffer. So this is the concept. Normally, if we just focus on protecting the environment and protecting the people, the company will become less profitable. And when the company goes bankrupt, nobody will be there left standing to care about the environment. Because let's face it, all the activities, all the CSR activities, initiatives, all these need money, and mostly they are either funded by governments or a large chunk of it is actually funded by corporate organization companies. Now, with that came the framework of ESG, looking into a balance of environment, social, and governance. Now, this is where the big and important question comes. What is ESG? I'll just give it to you because we we don't really have much time. So ESG, if someone asks you, is a framework, a reporting framework to for companies, it's for business organizations to adopt to disclose. Now the keyword there is disclose, to tell the world about their sustainability performance. And their sustainability performance includes disclosures, again, disclosing on sustainability, which includes environmental performance, social performance, and economic performance. Now, then you ask me, why would company want to disclose their sustainability performance? Now, this is where over the years, the interest of the global community shifted a little bit. Now, everyone, the global community, everyone, uh, became interested to be associated with products, services, or even organizations that have a little bit of awareness and compassion towards the planet. Now, this is the idea. We were introduced with the concept that the planet cannot take up the impacts that are arising from our daily activities, from our industrial activities. Now, this is the concept of sustainability became a little bit more established, and we were told that if we don't change how we conduct our daily lives, the planet will suffer, and we will meet our demise. Now that's the idea, right? We will meet our demise. Now I'll go through that in another slide, but basically, um, I like to use analogies. Let's imagine this analogy. You remember when you were in the kindergarten, when you were little kids, right? So what happened? You have friends, right? You have a circle of friends around you, and you always say, if I'm nice and you're not nice, what do you say? I don't want to friend you. And on top of that, you will go to tell your other friend, look, don't friend him. He's not nice. Tak nak kawan dengan dia. I don't want to friend you. So ESG is exactly alike, and the business community is exactly like that. You really want to call it childish, or you want to call it moving on towards more compassion towards sustainability. So companies are expected to disclose. Now, when I use the word expected, some companies are regulated. So, for example, in Malaysia, the public listed companies are regulated by Bursa Malaysia uh, to have their sustainability report be published along with their annual report, which means public listed companies require to disclose their environmental, social, and economic performance through a report called their ESG report. Now, some people call this sustainability report, it's one and the same. Now, to redefine what is ESG, it is a reporting framework, a standardized reporting framework that business organizations particularly, can adopt to disclose, to tell the world about their sustainability performance in a standardized manner. So when I tell you my sustainability performance, when he tells you his sustainability performance, we are telling the same story. So that's ESG. It is a standardized and globally accepted manner for organizations to tell the world, to disclose. Now, tell the world, the technical term for it is disclose, or the lingo in the ESG fraternity is disclose, to disclose their sustainability performance to the world. Okay. Now, in this disclosure, you have three pillars. One is the environmental pillar, the social pillar, and the governance pillar. Under the environmental pillar, now under each pillars, you have topics or issues or particular particles of interest that you want to disclose. You want to be telling, the world your performance. Under the environmental pillar, there will be topics like climate change and carbon emissions, which is what everyone is talking about. You're looking at air and water pollution. You're looking at biodiversity, deforestation, energy, water management. Now, under social, you have topics like customer satisfaction, data protection, gender and diversity. And under governance, you have board composition, audit, bribery, integrity, anti-competition, and many more. I've listed them on the slide for you to see. But this is by far not an exhaustive list. There are more topics that people disclose or companies disclose. But just to give you the full circle now, if you take climate change and carbon emissions, so the disclosure will look something like this. So the company will say, uh, because we consume a lot of electricity now, climate change becomes material topic to the organization's activities. And they disclose this by saying, okay, so if we consume a lot of electricity, climate change and carbon emissions is a material topic to us because we appreciate that electricity was generated from fossil fuels, and therefore our big consumption will result in a lot of emissions going into the atmosphere. Now, that's the materiality portion. They acknowledge it themselves. Nobody is forcing it down their throats, right? So they acknowledge that. Now, the second portion is the strategy. So now, because they've acknowledged that, they say, okay, now that we've acknowledged we have a lot of emissions, we have a target, right? We have a target, a destination that they have set. We therefore pledge our alignment towards the Paris Agreement, which actually targets net zero emissions by 2050. Now you have a target, right? And therefore, you disclose strategies that come along with that, right? So the strategy is, okay, since we are using a lot of the grid energy, which comes from fossil fuels, what we'll do is we'll install solar panels at our facility to reduce reliance on grid electricity and replace it with renewable energy. Okay, now you have a strategy, a means to arrive to your destination. And finally, you say, okay, this is a journey, and we're looking at between now and 2050 to reach net zero. And this year, we are halfway there, for example. Now, these are the four elements that goes into an ESG disclosure, and you can do this for all the materiality topics that is listed for the on the slide. So that's the idea of ESG. It's a reporting framework for companies to, in a standard manner, disclose their sustainability performance to the world. Okay, so I can't take questions, unfortunately, but I will try to come back to take questions if you have them. And worst case scenario, I do have my trusty partner, Mr. Greg Hall. He's a director at my company, actually. I didn't introduce that, but GTS, Galaxy Tech Solutions, is actually a consulting firm of which I'm the managing director. I founded it some time ago, and our core business is actually sustainability activities. We do write sustainability report for organizations, and we do assist organizations in developing their GHG inventory, their greenhouse gas inventory, or develop carbon footprints for their products. So that's what we do. So just to sum it up, sorry, I diverged a little bit, right? So ESG is a framework for company to report their sustainability performance. Now, some people call this managing risks and opportunities because most of the ESG framework written out there is for the lens or for the eyes of investors. Now, they look at this sustainability behavior as managing risks and opportunities because you look at sometimes people talk about health, right? If you watch what you eat and you exercise, that's going to be sustainable for your body. You're going to live healthy. You're going to live longer. So the idea that idea is similar to how investors look at companies. And if you behave, I'm going to use the word behave. If you behave in the environment, with the environment, if you behave with the people around you, the social, the communities, and if you behave financially, you govern your company well, the company is going to perform well, financially. So that's why investors look at ESG as a framework that it companies should adopt. And this actually transform the companies in their economic systems, in their environmental systems, and in their social systems. So ESG is not just about disclosing values, it's about the company disclosing and adopting and transforming to create and sustain long term value for its business. So, this is why ESG becomes something very important because investors look at ESG as something that the company need to have. Businesses need to have ESG, right? So that's the driving factor. That's why ESG becomes mainstream, if you want to call it, right? So it impacts the entire landscape that the company operates in. So when you look at ESG, basically you're looking at the some people call it relationship between the company and its stakeholders. And when you see stakeholders, you can group them up. You have internal stakeholders and you have external stakeholders. So ESG is about taking care of the relationship between these stakeholders. Internal stakeholders are people that care about the organization. So who cares about the organization? Of course, the owners and the people that work there. So these are the people that care about the organization. And external stakeholders are people that are impacted by the organization's activities. And this includes customers. Customers will be affected. If you give them lousy things, they'll be very, uh, uh, you know, they'll be very lousy, basically, right? Right. And suppliers are impacted by the business because when you buy more, they profit more. When you buy less, they profit less. And this includes, of course, investors, creditors, media, government agency, and communities. And even though you might not find this, but I think the planet is a stakeholder as well, even though you may want to call it voiceless, but it's being impacted by the company activities. Now, ESG is about reporting, and I gave that four elements in the report just now. That's actually, in one way, you can look at it as a relationship between the business and the stakeholders. Now, ESG is just about managing that. So one way, now you ask me, if it's just about managing relationships, how is it going to work? And furthermore, one interesting thing, only the public listed companies are regulated in terms of ESG disclosures, right? The other organizations are not actually required by law. So the driver for the requirement for ESG disclosures or to adopt ESG practices, as people might call it, is not compulsory for all the organizations. So it's just compulsory for public listed companies. So why then is everyone talking about it? Now, one aspect is that public listed companies like Petronas, for example, they have a value chain of about 4,000 plus, 4,000 to 5,000 vendors under their belt. So if they are going sustainable and they've disclosed this in their ESG disclosures, their vendors or their supply chain needs to be sustainable. Otherwise, it becomes a speck, a tarnish on their ESG disclosures, and they don't want that. So now it has transformed into a different animal, this ESG thing. And when you look at it first, the frameworks that we understand, the classical frameworks that we understand, we know the carrot. You do something, you get rewarded. And we know the stick. You don't do something, you get the stick, or the stick can be you know in the form of fines, uh, you know regulatory implications. So that's the stick, right? You pollute, the Department of Environment will come and give you fines, right? Or if you don't pay the fines, you'll be taken to court, right? So the carrot and the stick is something that we understand. Now ESG is not carrot and it's not stick, but what it does is the closest analogy that I can come up with is it's a key. Probably it opened up doors for you. So in the context of Petronas just now that I mentioned, So if Petronas is cleaning up their act through, adopting sustainability through ESG disclosures, they would want to be able to tell everyone that, it's not just me being clean, I'm also leading this agenda, and my supply chain is being clean, driven by me. So now you have a value chain of 4,000 to 5,000 vendors adopting the same thing, right? And this is true. Can you imagine for larger organizations that are multinational like Apple, Microsoft, Coca-Cola? And with that, it created a wave of businesses of the century that is looking into this sustainability. So it became something of a mainstream. And on top of that, right, that's one aspect. And on top of that, investors looking at, it looks like companies that are interested with sustainability are performing better financially. So it becomes a demand, right? And when demand is created, value goes up. So the share prices go up. And investors will lose interest if sustainability performance is not there. So it works the other way. Therefore, share prices go down. So this is why you have the third apa nama, the third stakeholder, which is the ratings agencies, which actually looked at sustainability performance of organizations, and they are the one that that how do you say, that are impacting the share prices of the companies, right? So therefore, this ESG becomes something that everyone is interested in. So the standards are being developed by standards organizations. The evaluation criteria are being developed by a ratings agency. And overall, we can say ESG makes good business sense. Even though you don't see direct tangible returns, uh, you see that, because you're taking care of the stakeholders and you balance that with corporate profitability, ESG makes good business sense. It's a balance of relationships between your stakeholders. So that's what it is. I think things are gelling up right now. So another way to look at it is, you're looking at taking care of what's happening in between your internal people that care about you, people that care about the company, and your external people that are impacted or care about how they are impacted by your business activities. Now, on the legal side, that's interesting. The government and the regulator. So in Malaysia, that's Bursa Malaysia. Everywhere around the world is the equivalent of Bursa Malaysia. Now they are responsible for regulating the ESG report. Now, if you look at Bursa Malaysia, and what they're regulating is, companies need to disclose, or public listed companies need to have an ESG report. That's it. They don't go beyond that. And if you notice, the interesting thing is not carrot, it's not stick, right? I mentioned earlier, it's not carrot, it's not stick. The interesting thing is nowhere in this guideline it says that, companies should reduce their emissions, companies should save electricity, companies should reduce water consumption. Never ever. So ESG is not about that. ESG is not regulated that way. So the only thing that Bursa is regulating, that uh, businesses need to have sustainability report. That's it, right? So how it works, again, I like to use this analogy. If your orang kata muka tak malu, right? If you don't have shame, this year you say this in your report, next year you say that, the following year you say that again. So kalau muka you tak malu, tahun ni macam ni, tahun depan you macam tu, tahun depan-depan lagi you macam tu, no improvement reported. So tak boleh lah kan? And that makes the company look bad, and therefore share prices go down. So that's not the route that companies want to go through. So therefore, that's the secret ingredient that has made ESG quite effective, because it's not really the stick, it's the incentives, the key. It provides access for the company through funding by institution and interest by the investors, or the shareholders. So that's what you're looking at. Now, lenders are banks and financial institutions, because they are also interested in sustainability, because it also gives them value. And therefore, you have the financial institution creating frameworks that that specifically address the theme of that framework specifically address sustainability. So I can't cover that because I think time is also running out soon. And you're looking at, Sukuk, for example, SUKUK. You can search that up. I know the sustainability Sukuk, where it actually focuses these funds that are available, right? Financial support that are available, or loans that are available, financing that is available for organizations that want to use this funding for sustainability related projects or environmental related projects. So that's the interest. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Now, moving forward, just to sum up what I've mentioned earlier, you see on the left, so a company's way of reporting ESG has four components. Now, the management part, as I mentioned earlier, is related to the materiality. So the company says, I've done my study and I'm acknowledging, I use a lot of electricity and climate change and GHG emissions is material to my business operations. That's the management portion, the materiality analysis and the materiality part, right? Material management, the management of material topics, or whatever you want to call it. Now, from there, then I have an outcome that I've identified. Because I have a lot of emissions, I'm aligning myself with Paris Agreement. I'm repeating myself, and you may have a little bit of deja vu where you're at. Right? So because of acknowledging that I have a lot of emissions, I'm going to align myself with the Paris Agreement, and we're looking at achieving net zero by 2050. Right? So that's the outcome. So that's the destination that you want to arrive. So now, when you have destination, you can then start your car and go, which is your strategy. So starting the car. So because I'm using the word electricity, the material topic electricity, because it's easy for everyone to understand. So because I know I use a lot of electricity and this causes a lot of climate impact or GHG emissions, I can do two things. I can say, okay, strategy number one is we're going to go around our business or around our company to see if there are uh, energy efficiency initiatives that we can implement. So that's strategy number one. Strategy number two, okay, we know that these emissions are actually not because of our usage of electricity, but it's because the grid is supplying us with electricity that has been generated from fossil fuels. So you look, okay, so I'm coming up with a strategy. So our strategy number two is actually we're gonna over the years install solar panels so that we reduce our reliance on grid electricity, and we swap that, or we, how do you say, we change that with we substitute, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. We substitute that with renewable energy, and therefore addressing our climate impact. So that's the strategy portion. Now the last portion on the bottom corner, that bottom corner there, is progress. So every year in your sustainability report, you disclose or you tell the world, okay, I have this plan between now and 2050. This year I'm this much. I've made this much progress. I'm halfway there. So that's actually that four puzzle pieces is actually what your sustainability report is, or your ESG report is, or what your ESG disclosures are. Now, how does this impact the company? Now, again, I always mention, right, when you talk about ESG, it's always written in the lens of the investors. So investors are the ones that are interested and looking specifically at ESG reports. So now they will see the ability of the company to create long-term value. As the world change, as climate change the world, the company is still able to survive. Does that creating long-term value? And along the way, the company becomes more mature in its ESG practices, in its sustainability practices. So much so, it changes their corporate structure, their corporate culture. Everyone is talking about sustainability. Products are built first on sustainability. Now, if you look, your iPhone, right? So I think many of you will be using your iPhones. So you go to the page on Apple where they're talking about the iPhone. They will showcase first, how sustainable this device is that they built. It's fully recycled. It uses rare earth that has been recycled, and they target it as they move along. The iPhones and the products that they're producing, not just limited to the iPhones, are becoming fully recyclable, having a very much reduced impact on the planet. And whatever that they cannot recycle, they will recover, and whatever that they cannot reduce, they will offset. Now that's another topic. Now you will hear about carbon credits and offsetting impacts in another talk. I hope you call me again, but I can cover that in another talk because again, time is running out. So, how a company shows up in ratings, which actually affects their share prices, and normally public listed company, you don't want your share prices to go down because then you'll be answerable to the investors or to your shareholders, and that's normally something that they don't want to go lah, because the management and the board of directors are the custodians of the public funds, right? The public's money that you have taken, that they purchase your share, you want to give them something in return, right? Or good performance in terms of dividends and profits. So that's how a public listed company works anyway. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're answerable, because normally what they will do is the investors will vote to terminate the management and things like that. It's something that has happened. All right. So ESG is very much important to businesses in terms of corporate reputation, risks, opportunities, and culture. Where, in corporate reputation, you're looking at enhanced customer and investor acquisition. Enhanced customer acquisition is where, customers are looking to buy products, are looking at taking services that with companies that are more green. I think you see this all the time. If you notice, airline companies, right? When you buy plane tickets, for example, they have the carbon emissions that they report with the plane ticket that you bought. If you order Grab, for example, right now they are saying, look, we are responsible. You can order cutlery with your food, and sometimes if you click next too fast, right, you'll miss it, and you end up paying that I believe it's 20 cents for greening the world. So that's something that is actually related to corporate reputation. Nobody wants to be related to destruction of the planet or the environment. For example, many years back, you look at BP with the oil spill that actually destroyed their corporate reputation, and the company almost went bankrupt because of that. Now, along the way, as you're doing that four things just now, you're identifying how you impact, and you're coming up with strategy that actually translate into risk reduction and opportunity management, right? You're looking at reducing your sustainability and your climate risk, and at the same time, you are uncovering if there are new opportunities in terms of new market, new customers, new product, new revenue streams. Companies like Unilever, they actually specialize in this. They look at opportunities of uh, customers that are underserved, that are not met. So that's actually an alternative or even a new revenue stream for your organization. Now, the last part is culture and intrinsic value. I think many of you are much younger than me, probably young enough. I'm old enough to be your father, probably, right? So many of you, the global community is saying the younger generation are more attuned and more compassionate about the planet, and this has resulted in talent retention. People will want to work more in companies that are seen to be more sustainable, and this is true globally. You see a global movement that looks into that. Okay, I won't go into that further. I think you just see people are more interested to working with Google, with Apple for this reason. It's just trendy to be working for companies that are sustainable, as opposed to companies that are not sustainable, for example. But I think in Malaysia, people still want to work with Petronas. So the irony is, yeah, even though Petronas is oil and gas company, the culprit of it all, but yeah, because Petronas is also the leader, ironically, or not ironically, I don't know. I don't know if you're allowed to say that, but yeah. And anyway, Petronas is also the leader in sustainability in Malaysia. Companies like Petronas, Tenaga Nasional, so they seem to be the ones that are canang-canang kan this idea of sustainability, and that's what you're looking at. So that's my point is there's a lot of interest in this, right? So just to gel it up, people see planetary health. I'm not going to cover planetary health, but people talk about ESG, CSR, and SDG. How does that actually put up together now? I'll just tell you a story lah to make it easy, right? So sustainability is something that everyone is talking about, and the global community, the scientists and the cerdik pandais of the world, they say sustainability is how we should run our business. It's how we should run our daily lives so that the world can sustain, the planet can sustain itself. Otherwise, it will go big, big, big and break into half. Is it? Not really, right? But yeah, sustainability is something that we need to adopt. That's how we should run our lives. Otherwise, we are running into destruction. Everyone agrees. But then again, how do we do this sustainability? Who do we ask? What do we do? So the United Nations is the one we turn to, and they say, okay, look, let me think about it. And they came back. They say, okay, I can't tell you a long story, but what I'm going to give you is a checklist. I'm going to give you a checklist of goals that you need to meet, and if you meet these goals, inshallah, it'll be sustainable, right? So that's the Sustainable Development Goal. So this was a framework that was developed much earlier, but it covers the year 2015 to 2030. We have 5 years to go. So they gave you a checklist of 17 goals, right? So Sustainable Development Goal number one is to end poverty in every form and everywhere. Then Sustainable Development Goal number two is end hunger in every form and everywhere. And Sustainable Development Goal number three is health and well-being. Four is education. You're saying, look, how is that got to do with the environment, right? And you say, okay. I say, it's quite easy to explain. If you go to a hungry person and a poor person, you start talking about the dwindling population of the tigers, you look at their face. They will say, go to hell with you. You're allowed to say that now. They will say, no, 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 no. I don't want to talk about this. So the reason that people are talking about sustainability, the reason that we can talk about sustainability is we don't have these problems. These are pertinent problems. So in order for you to you don't see environment until Sustainable Development Goals number six, which is the water and sanitation. And as you go further until Sustainable Development Goals number 13, which is the climate action, you don't see the environment into that. And I think that's the reason you only can have conversations on environment and sustainability after these problems are being solved. So okay, so that covers the sustainable development goals, right? So you see the sustainable development goals is only achieved when you have impact on the social and you have impact on the environment. So the poverty and education, health, those are all social. And you see climate action, sustainable development goal number 13, my favorite goal. And you see the others that are related to the environment. So you need to have an impact on social and environment. So how do you achieve this impact? This is through your CSR activities, right? And who does CSR activities is the companies. And why does company need to do CSR activities? Because they are very good-hearted. Really? Yeah? No, not at all. Because investors expect them to do so through ESG, and users, your clients, their end users expect them to do so due to ethical behavior, right? You see, when you're not ethical or you are lying, you're not going to be performing very well. For example, if you're associated with the war or the genocide, you want to call it, I don't know. Maybe YouTube will cancel me for that word. But anyhow, for the problems that are having the world is having up in the Middle East, right? People will easily drop to your brand or boycott you for that reason. So that's the driver that is coming from the user, from the clients, and that's how this is all related. So the investors and the clients and the users will push the company and somehow to reach sustainability, and all of these how do you say, stakeholders are also involved. You have governments regulating certain portions. You have NGOs as watchdogs, making sure everyone behaves. You have businesses and industries contributing towards initiatives to support sustainability. You have R&D, universities and academic institutions doing research that are related to bring up more ideas, more technology. Everything works together into developing policies, processes, research, and also education that is aligned to sustainability. So that's what's happening, and that's the relationship. Planetary health, I won't cover, but it's actually a new science of how the human activities are specifically impacting how the world operates. right? So that's for another talk, right? If you're interested, call me again. Okay. So in the heart of the ESG disclosures, you will find a graph like how you see on the screen with these dots, right? So this is called a materiality assessment. It's basically a perception map of all the stakeholders. And on the vertical, you will see a perception map of, on the vertical axis, is a perception measure of what's important to your stakeholders. And on the horizontal axis, you will find a measure of what's important to the organization. So a balance of that is the materiality assessment or an overall map of what's important to the company. Now, this is what drives and the framework that actually shapes the ESG disclosures that the company has. Now, the parties and organizations around the world that actually comes up with the governance portion, or the standards that are that companies need to adopt to disclose to tell the story in a standardized manner. Over the years, because of the much interest on ESG, a lot of these organizations came up, not for bad intentions. Now, there's no malice there, simply to cater for the increasing demand of ESG disclosures. Now, you see organizations like the IFRS Sustainability Disclosure Standards. You see SASB, which is a standards board on well, I forgot what SASB is, but SASB is there. And you see the Global Reporting Initiative, you see CDP, you see the Global Reporting Initiative for the GRI. They all came up with standards. So they have different focuses, but many of them have similarities. They all focus on sustainability reporting. They are all about transparency and accountability. Now, why do we have standards? I use the word, telling the story in the same way, but it's also important, and the global community is looking at this transparency and accountability. So when you tell your stories, you don't want to be accused of greenwashing. Means what you say you really do, and what you say you achieve you really have. So that's transparency and accountability, and that's why it's quite sensitive that these companies are looking into being very accurate, very objective about the statements that they put in their disclosures. And this includes alignment with global goals. You see, you align with the sustainable development goals, right? The stakeholders engagement, I bukan tulis report ni suka-suka. I've already asked all my stakeholders, their engagements. I tanya orang ni what their concerns are. I tanya orang tu what their concerns are. So that's the stakeholders engagement. And over the years, I'm reporting my progress. Which I cakap tadi, halfway through, we've installed the solar panels and whatnot. And then you talk about your materiality and your impact. You talk about risk. You talk about uh, how you manage this risk. And finally, in the last bullet point on the similarities is the assurance. So it's not enough that you are doing this. You need someone to come and tell you that, you need someone to come and tell others that, oh, he's telling the truth. So these are assurance or certification bodies like SIRIM. SIRIM can come and say, okay, we've read the report by ABC company, and we find that all the information there is accurate and true. So that's the assurance and verification part. Now, there are other reporting frameworks like the TCFD, which is the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosure. Now, this is required by Bank Negara for financial institution, and it looks into standards of not just mitigation. ESG is about mitigation, but this is more on adaptation to see what the company has put in place to actually face the climate change that is coming, that's going to be facing us in the future, because that then also translate into business resilience, and to I have put my money there, I'm going to make sure that 50 years from now you're still operating. So that's CCFD, actually how the company will survive in a low carbon economy, or in a low carbon environment where regulatory requirements are more stringent and whatnot, right? So ESG ratings, as I mentioned earlier, they are the ones that come and give you a report card. They evaluate your company in terms of its environmental, social, and economic performance, and they give you a report card. And these report cards are being looked at by investors, and this actually governs, or this actually affects your share prices, and it goes up, it goes down. So you want to be good in the eyes of the ratings agencies. So in Malaysia, ratings agencies are like the FTSE for good, Bursa, and there's an index, and now there's a Sharia compliant version. Now they will give you star ratings, right? So you have 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. When you want to go and eat, also you will see the star rating, right, or not, of the shops, whether they're clean, A, B, C, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. So this is what you do. You want higher stars. You want the ratings agency to give you better performance, because investors will perceive this as having good company performance. Now, some of the other international ratings agency that you see are like MSCI, CDP, Sustainalytics, Bloomberg, many of these other organizations. I'm just gonna give this to you. Moody, EcoVadis, of course, Refinitiv, and the others as well. I'm not going to go through them, but I'm just going to conclude it by saying, in the overall framework and ecosystem of sustainability, uh, the main player is, of course, Bursa Malaysia, which actually regulates the public listed companies to have their sustainability disclosures. And the Securities Commission has come up with the SADG, the Simplified ESG Disclosure Guideline for the value chain to take up. And on top of that, Bank Negara, through its CCPT, requires financial institutions, banks, basically, to adopt sustainability performance. And coming soon, the SSM, the Suruhanjaya Syarikat Malaysia, they've also come up with a framework and guideline for non-public listed company, means the businesses and the Sendian Berhad, to take up sustainability reporting and disclosures through the something they might call the business review report or the director's report. So basically, all businesses will be required, and all of you will be graduating soon. And I hope that this is something that you can add on as an added knowledge onto your CV, to be someone who's aware and someone who's aligned and someone who can contribute to the company's agenda on sustainability. So do reach out to me. I think that concludes my talk for the day. I hope that I've given you enough information. My contact information is there, and I think also my LinkedIn link to my LinkedIn. The address, you call it, is it the URL to my LinkedIn is there. Do connect with me if you're there. And if you have any questions, I think if I'm here, I'll be happy to take it. Or if Greg, my director, is here, he'll be also happy to take up your questions. But otherwise, if you're shy to go about the questions now, I think the you can reach out to me through the social media on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to take your questions there as well. So again, thank you for your attention, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me. And I do hope that this is not too much of an inconvenience to you. I do hope that I did not freeze somewhere halfway along the line. I am very much happy to be able to be given this opportunity to talk to you today. With that, thank you. Assalamualaikum. Have a great day ahead.